Shalom. Welcome to our Friday Erev Shabbat, Erev Yom Tov talk. This is R Avraham Shira from Nar Shalom. Today we're going to be looking at the idea of honor. And this is an idea we've been looking at for weeks now in other Torahs of Rabbi Nachman, the Zohar, and other places. You know, honor is one of those things that everybody seems to want, and the rabbis tell us to run away from it. Another wonderful paradox of Judaism. But of course, there are many grades of honor, many levels of honor. You know, when I was a kid, the U.S. Marines, that was honor. You know, that changed a little bit over the time. And there was honor your father and mother. That seems to stand up. But today we're going to talk about honoring the festivals. Honoring the festivals. In Torah Kuf Lamed Chet, Kuf Lamed Hey, the Rebbe is going to talk about this idea. Ki ikach moed ani mesharim eshpot. We have a verse that tells us, take the festival, and I will judge straightly. What's the catch here? Doesn't God always judge straight, fair? What's the connection to the festivals? Straight judgment and festivals. So keep these questions in mind. Let's take a little journey here. One of the ways that we can save ourselves from Gadlut. Now, Gadlut in Kabbalah and Hebrew is greatness, expansion. It's usually a good thing. Mochin de Gadlut. That's what we're looking for on Leila Seder. Expanded consciousness. We see the big picture, and the heart doesn't get trapped in its little box. But here, Gadlut is used differently. There's a pejorative sense. A negative idea of Gadlut is, well, I think all of you know it. I certainly do. Ana imloch, I will rule. I am great. Look at me. All those egoistic expressions that come from the need for power, attention, and oftentimes a lack of self-esteem. So the Rebbe is giving us an advice how to keep away that ego. Lechaber et yamim tovim. To honor the festivals is one of the ways that we can save ourselves from the ego. How? The festival is a good time to show the ego. You know, you can spend more money, have a lot of friends over, sit at the head of the table. How does honoring the festival save us from the ego? And honoring the festival also helps us receive the festival with great joy and an open heart. Each one according to his ability. So having an open heart is certainly something we can all identify with as a spiritual goal. An open heart, again, is this idea of acceptance, of love, compassion, mercy, understanding, all the qualities we need to make it in this world. But he says, now this is important, because not everybody has the same open heart. And one guy's open heart is another guy's closed heart. For the tzaddik, for the truly righteous, for the leaders of the generation who have seen a lot more than we have and heard a lot more, their closed heart is for another average person who has not seen the inside of people's lives. That small heart of the tzaddik is a great one for the smaller guy. So we have to always keep things in proportion when we talk about these traits. Ki Moshe Rabbeinu, olav shalom, aridei shezachal arba'im tishim sharei bina. Moshe Rabbeinu, who merited to the 49 gates of understanding, and which today we are in the 48th day of the Omer. Tonight we're going to count the 49th. We've completed the cycle, the 7 full weeks that the Torah tells us to count the Omer. And every day we can count, even if we forgot a day. Most of the rabbis say you can't bless. There are those that say you can, even if you've skipped, but that's not the general Pasak halacha. But nonetheless, Moses merited to 49 gates of understanding. What does this mean, 49 gates of understanding? That we're going through this cycle in order to prepare ourselves to receive the Torah, to Motzei Shabbat. What are 49 gates of understanding? Well, think about it on a simple way. When you're a child, you start to understand that the world doesn't all love me, and that the world is not necessarily going to take care of me. I understand that my parents are there, thank God. I understand that my brothers and sisters are there. I understand that my teachers are kind of there for me. So as a child, this is kind of like how we feel our way through childhood. Who's for me and who's against me? Who's safe and who's not safe? And after we get older, we understand that life isn't all about just finding out who's going to take care of me. That I've got to start figuring out how to take care of myself. That's a new level of understanding. And then we go further and we get to the point we want to get married and we understand, wow, I have to take care of somebody else. That's another level of understanding. And so on and so forth. The pyramid of taking care, of taking responsibility grows. And all of us are on this structure, this pyramid. So understanding, I believe, is understanding responsibility. Now, of course, there's understanding the Torah, there's understanding nature, there's understanding a lot of things. But, not everybody can understand post-quantum physics or microbiology. But we all can understand the idea of taking responsibility. And that's one of the things that children need to learn when they go to school. Take responsibility for yourself. You have to learn to get dressed in the morning. Learn to pack your backpack. Learn to take your lunch. Learn how to be at the bus stop on time. These are all forms of understanding responsibility. So Moshe, who was the leader of 3 million people walking around in the desert, go try to be the leader of 30 people walking around the desert. He needed a ton of understanding because he took responsibility to take people out on a walk in the desert for 40 years. And that's a long hike, folks. Think about it. Are you ready to take people out on a hike for 2 days? One night camping. Take 10 people hiking. Do you know all the things that you need? Take people out in the desert without food, without water. Okay, they had a little matzah. They had a little water in their goat skins. How do you do that? How did Moses do that? He took responsibility for those Jews, those children of Abraham. They weren't even called Jews then, remember. The tribe of Judah is, of course, the name where the name Jew comes from. But that didn't spread out into the nation so quickly. There were 11 other tribes. They wanted to be called by their names. But really, we understand that these 49 gates of understanding that are preparing us for the Torah is because the Torah is a document of responsibilities. The Torah is a document of saying that I am responsible because God made me to be this way. And these laws are going to help me. So the next time I wonder about this rabbi or that rabbi, if he's on the level, okay, fair enough. You should be checking things out. But on another level, remember, look at first person's responsibilities before you judge them. Look at your boss. You don't like him. Look at the CEO of your company. You don't like him. Well, how much is he taking on? And it'll help us maybe achieve a little more understanding, these gates that we need to go through. Because they get bigger and bigger. But here, what's the connection now? Like by going through these gates of understanding, I'm able to receive and honor the Yom Tov. Because it's not about me anymore. This festival is not about me getting the Torah. It's about the world receiving the Torah, and everyone that I'm responsible for. I have to look out for them and try to help them receive the Torah as well. So Moshe merited to the title Anav Me'od Mikol Adam, the most humble person on the face of the earth. It's an interesting honor, you know. The Torah gives Moses the highest honor, but who wrote it? Moses wrote it. Can you imagine? God's dictating in your ear what to write, and he says, now write this. You are the most humble person on the face of the earth. And what's Moses going to say? Hold on a minute here. Hold on. How can you say that about me? Rabbi Nachman talks about this idea of humility and identity. Because in the Gemara, there's a person called Rav Yosef. Now, Rav Yosef's nickname was Sinai, interestingly enough. Mount Sinai, that's his nickname. Because, of course, he was an encyclopedia of Torah knowledge. And all the oral traditions that came around, he learned them and remembered them and was able to answer them and give people guidance from his knowledge. So Rav Yosef says, if there's anybody humble in the generation, it's me. That doesn't sound like a humble statement, does it? And what's the connection between humility and the 49 gates of understanding and honoring the Yom Tov? So the questions keep piling up. Let's look in more. Yom Tov is mochin de'ima. Well, we go straight to the Kabbalah of the Arizal that the Yom Tov is getting its mental power from the left brain. Now, we have to learn a lot of Kabbalah to lay out the template of the worlds to understand that statement a little better. And we're not going to do that now. But the power of understanding is the left brain, and at its highest root, way, way up the tree of life, before Avraham becomes Avraham and David becomes David, there's this power called Ima, Ila'ah, the upper mother. The root trait called understanding before it enters human consciousness. Therefore, when we receive the Yom Tov, Shehi Bina, which is understanding, Zochei La'anava, that when you receive the understanding on Yom Tov, the gift that comes with it is humility. Isn't that interesting? If I say to you, go to shul, you'll get some humility. That doesn't sound like a gift. It sounds like a put down, or you better get ready for one. But that's because we frame humility wrong. We frame humility as, oh, little me, my head goes down, my shoulders kind of come over, and little me, low me. This is not humility. That's low self-esteem. Humility is defined, our Rosh Hashiva once said, humility is knowing your place in the structure. I know who I am and who I'm not. I know there are people that know a lot more than me, and maybe some people that haven't had the merit or the gift to be able to sit and learn Torah. I know my place. That's humility. You don't put yourself up or down. We understand that my Yetzer Tov is a piece of God. And my Yetzer Hara is a collection of impulses that I'd rather not have. So where am I? I'm stuck in the middle. But I'm not really stuck. That's what free choice is. Free choice means God gave you the captain's chair. Now you pick right or left. So go to shul on Yom Tov, merit to anava. Wow. Ki Yom Tov begamatria sag. Now here's another Kabbalistic term. The Yom Tov, the letters spell out the number 63, which is the numerical value of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, spelled out with Aleph and Yud in the middle of the letters, and 63 with the 5 letters, the Yud letters, the 10 letters of that name spelled out is the idea of Sag, the spelling of God's name that's connected to Ima. In other words, in an overview, quickly, the way we spell God's name translates the mental power that's coming to you. Like an equation. Okay? And so each mental power that you have, whether it's wisdom, or it's understanding, or it's knowledge, or a combination, there's different ways to spell God's names that are like locks on the safe of heaven. You turn the lock and that power comes down. So Yom Tov, Hag Shavuot, for example, is this bringing down this light through the translation of God's name into the mental processes of consciousness that we call understanding. And he tells us that anava, of course, is the opposite of gas ruach, a broad spirit. Gas in regular Hebrew is kind of coarse, thick. It's not exactly thick, but it's that idea. And a gas ruach is people that are, how do you say it? How do we say gas ruach in English? Come on, folks, help me out. Well, usually when I need a word, it'll come later, so we'll get there. But nonetheless, you understand this idea of a broad, a little bit arrogant spirit. Ki Yom Tov mivatel gadlut, because Yom Tov, anava, humility is the thing that cancels out the ego. It cancels out the arrogance. Ki teva hakatnut yitpatel legabe gadlut, because the nature of small-mindedness is that it's canceled out by great-mindedness. V'al ken kishmekurav latzadik nitpatel legadlut. Therefore, when a person is connected to the true tzaddik, his own godlus is canceled because the tzaddik is humble. Ki ayedei ora gadol shel tzaddik nitpatel legamre, because when your person comes close to a righteous person, it kind of makes you feel small. But that smallness is good, because that's the humility that's being translated from person to person. And that's canceling out that idea of godlus, of ego. I've seen it a million times. In the yeshiva in Jerusalem, there's people coming in all the time. And they have expensive suits and they carry briefcases. And I imagine they're bringing in some money or checks or whatever they're bringing. The minute they hit the door, you see their spirit goes down. And the minute they leave, if you see them out on the street, they're not the same people when they enter the Beit Knesset. That's what we're talking about here. That little change that takes place when you walk into the shul, when you walk into the office of a holy person. That lowering of a person's ego is exactly the light that you're going to get on Yom Tov. Wow, this is not a normal day. This is the day that God gave the world the Torah. And Shabbat is the same thing. But Shabbat's interesting. We get so used to Shabbat because we have it every week that we can easily forget. The Shabbat is also the idea of rest. And people often translate the idea of rest to, sababa, I can take it easy, I can chill out. And that doesn't necessarily cancel out our ego. Okay? And this is an idea that we see by Eov, who was crushed by factors in his life. Ra'uni na'arim et nichabau. Wow. After Eov fell and he was stricken by all kinds of horrible things, he said, the young people look at me and they hide themselves. They hide themselves. Now this is a rough thing. You know, if a person is ill and sick, he's stricken with boils, he's sitting on the ground in ashes, you know, wearing sackcloth, you're kind of like, wow, what do I do with this? One impulse would be to go over and say, are you okay? Can I help you? Would you like a drink of water? But another impulse is, let me get away from this guy. You don't know what I'm talking about? Walk into Penn Station. Walk where all those homeless people are sitting on their squares on the floor on their cartons. How does it make you feel? Think about it. Be honest. A lot of people walk in there, they don't want to get near the homeless people. Is that humility? But when we understand that a human being can reach that level to live on the floor of a train station, it's humbling. It's scary. It's, I think, designed to invoke our compassion. That's humility. That is, what Rabbi Nachman explains, that Job is telling us that when you see the face of the tzaddik, the little people or the littleness in ourselves hides. Because the greatness, the smallness, the humility is nullified by the greatness. But again, a Jewish paradox, that the one who's the smallest is actually the greatest. The one like Moses, the greatest Jew, maybe the greatest human being who ever lived, if you want, how do you measure such a thing? But all things being equal, you could say he's in the top 10, put him on YouTube, the top 10 prophets. I'm sure that one will get some hits. But really, think about it. He's called the humblest guy, and he's actually the greatest guy. So on one hand, if you walk into the humble person, you should feel his smallness. But on the other hand, he's great. It makes you feel small. So either way, there's this duality taking place here between ego and humility. Ve'ikar koach kedushat Yom Tov, and the essential, this is important, the essential power of the holiness of Yom Tov, hu talui b'tzadikim. This depends on the righteous. Why? Why? Let's say we're all just kind of middle Jews. We're not evil and we're not completely righteous. We're just like normal people. So why does Yom Tov depend on them? Well, it's written, Eile Moedei Hashem. These are the festivals of God. Asher tikro otam b'moedam, that you will call them in their time. Darshu Razal, and our sages say on this verse, you will call those festivals in their time. Al tikre otam ele atem. Don't say you're calling the festivals, rather Atem, you are called the festival. So God is saying, you're my people, you're keeping the festival, you're my festival. Because God is above time. He's always in joy. well, not always, let's say, God is beyond our understanding. And how he shows himself to this world is about us, not about his infinity and his eternity of qualities. But nonetheless, he's telling us that Atem, you are called the festivals. And therefore, the festivals are dependent on the righteous because of God saying this. Therefore, when we receive the festivals with honor, and we receive the great light of the festival, Shehu Bechinat Tzaddik, which is an aspect of the righteous. So here we see that the energy that you should receive on Motzi Shabbat this week is parallel to the energy that you would receive from a righteous person if you walked into his office. Or even if you saw him on the street, for that matter. And what happens is our ego is nitpatel, it's nullified. Ki hakatnut patel legabe gadlut, because the smallness is canceled out by the greatness of the tzaddik. Now, David, our friend, makes a comment. Many of the New York PD and Penn Station have learned to treat the homeless with a little bit of patience and caring. They give them space to get their heads together. Well, that's nice to know. I remember them. I don't remember anybody getting their heads together, but I do remember that they each did have their own little space. There was this kind of, this idea of halacha of Dalet Amot, that every human being has his 2-meter square that's his space. You notice even when you meet somebody, you don't get up in their face, oh, hey, the camera helps, right? You stick your hand out. You're reaching out of your space into his space. That's also honor. When we shake hands with somebody, we do so, especially if it's someone you don't know, from a distance. That's actually honoring the other person's space. And so too on Yom Tov, we honor the Yom Tov by we set it aside. We give it its own space. Now there's other ways to honor the Yom Tov. We buy special food, special drinks, special clothes. Jewelry, for example, is something that we buy on Shavuot because it's a sign of the idea of marriage to the Torah, marriage to Hashem. And of course, buying jewelry for your spouse is considered an important thing on Shavuot because our bride is a symbol, a carrier of the divine presence. I remember Rabbi Kaplan wrote many years ago that you know how a person relates to the Shekhinah by how he relates to his wife. You don't have to get any fancier than that. And you can talk all the talks and learn all the books. But how we treat our wives is really essential in our relationship to the divine. And that's a test. Okay, now what we've just learned, we're going to go a little further. We have this idea that smallness is always nullified by greatness. Therefore, a person is obligated to receive the face of his master on the festival. To go to your rabbi, to see him. Because the power of Yom Tov depends on the righteous. And it's not so really hard, it's a little esoteric, but to understand that if the tzaddik is the person that's channeling the light of Hashem into the world, we understand that that's in the place of soul. But when we say that the Yom Tov is a channel of light into the world, that's in the concept of space, time. And we also say that the Yom Tov, the lights of Hashem come into space through the Beit HaMikdash. So we have Olam, Shana, Nefesh, the Baal Shem Tov teaches, are the three entities that you need to make a world. Olam is space. Shana means a year, it's time. And Nefesh is soul, which is intentionality, the mind, the focus, the thoughts of the mind. We need those three things, intentionality. If we lack one of them, it's not called a world. So the Beit HaMikdash on Yom Tov, with the Kohen Gadol who is a tzaddik, all three together unify time and space and soul. And all those three together certainly is a worthy goal for anybody to pursue. And again, whether we get there or not, the important thing is that we try. And now we're going to understand a question that's brought in the Talmud. And now we can understand much better a kushya, a difficulty in the Gemara. Al Rabbi Elazar Shamar. Rabbi Elazar said, Mishabech ani et nelatzim beregel. That's a funny one. Atzlanim, excuse me. Rabbi Eliezer says, I praise the lazy people on the festival. What does that mean? Since when does the Torah praise lazy people? King Solomon said, Atzer lech lenamal. Meaning, lazy person, go check out the ants. You're tired, you don't want to do anything, go look at the ants. They're not stopping for anything from day to night to day to night. Right? The ants are always on the move, working. So why is Rabbi Eliezer praising the lazy? He says, because it says you will be happy on your festivals. And then Rabbi Yitzchak says, wait a minute, we are obligated to go see our teachers, our Rav, on the festival. So that doesn't involve samachta b'hagecha, that involves going and making efforts. Shnamar madua atolechet, which is the idea, why are you going? Where are you going? It's Yom Tov. Ki avshehu berichuk mea parsa mirabo b'Yom Tov. Even if a person lives 100 parsas, which is about 50 miles, give or take, b'Yom Tov, v'lo azal ve'ateh b'yoma, and he doesn't go on that day, al kol zehu mechuyav lakbil penei rabo b'regel. Even still, he is obligated to make the journey to see his teacher. Hayinu sheyakir penei rabo b'regel. That is, she should. Now, here's an interesting word here, to know the face of his rabbi on the festival. So nowadays, if you have a good camera and a picture, you don't have to travel the 50 miles to see his face. If you have a picture, you could say that. I'm not saying that's a halacha, but you could interpret it that way. And he says this is the idea of honoring the Yom Tov, kibel or agadol shel Yom Tov, and to receive the great light of the Yom Tov, shu b'chinet penei rabo, which is the aspect of the face of his teacher. Ki ikar kedushat Yom Tov tolui b'tzadikim. The essential idea of the holiness of Yom Tov depends on the tzaddik. Shemikabel et Yom Tov hu mikabel penei rabo mamash. Because when you receive, this is very interesting. When you receive the Yom Tov, you're receiving the face of your rabbi. And now ask yourselves, have you ever noticed how Chabadniks look like Chabadniks? And the Sephardi guys look like Rav Avadia if they follow Rav Avadia? And it just seems like the followers look like their teachers. Is that just a coincidence? Well, actually it isn't. Because it's explained in another Torah by Rabbi Nachman and in the Kabbalah as well. There's a Kabbalah called the Kabbalat HaPartzufim. which is learning how to read faces. Now, this is not something that you go out and get a degree in, okay? It's something that if you learn it, you're supposed to hide it, and you're not supposed to use it, because it can distort the way you look at people, and that's not good. It's better to be innocent and pure when you look at people. But Hachmat Partsufim does teach you about the lines in the face and the shapes of the organs, etc. So nonetheless, why is it that all these students look like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and all these students look like Rav Shach, and all these students look like our Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Sharabi, and Rav Beniyahu? Why is that? Well, because receiving the face is not just seeing somebody, as we've said before. It's receiving a look. It's receiving a way of expressing oneself. Because human beings learn chiefly by copying. I don't care if you're getting a PhD or you're in first grade. You learn by copying your teacher. And you might say, no, I don't. I read the physics books and then I get my PhD in physics. It's not so simple. Because we say, Chachmat Adam Ta'ir Panav, that a man's wisdom illuminates his face. And when you see someone's face who's shining with his wisdom, you receive his wisdom. And then if you have someone else's wisdom, guess what your face shines with? The same shine as his face. And so you see that you really are taking on somebody else's face. When you see your Rav's face on Yom Tov, you receive his wisdom, and that makes your face more like his face. And that's why if you have teachers that are very dark and serious, you'll get very dark and serious students. And it's you want to call it osmosis? Fine. But it's just uncanny, if you notice. And you know, when I first got to Jerusalem, I used to go out on Friday nights and go to the different tishes, the different meals of the great Rebbes that were in Jerusalem. Now, it's a fun tour, you know. You should ask your tour guide. But really, on a Friday night, there's many different festival meals going on, and Yom Tov, of course, and they're open to the public. And you can go in and see the Rebbes, see them eat, see them make blessings, see them pass out leftovers and all kinds of interesting things. Sing songs, give over Torah. It's really a cultural event. But look at the rabbis and look at the students and you'll know what I'm talking about. There is this spiritual transfer of soul power that comes out of a person and into another. And this is also the idea, obviously, of receiving the Yom Tov receiving your rabbi on the Yom Tov. So, you'll see, maybe you notice in my office, there's pictures of tzaddikim on the wall. These are different tzaddikim that I've met and tried to receive from. But I always felt this sense of klaliut, of inclusion, that I didn't want just one righteous influence in my life. But I wanted to receive from all of them. Because ultimately, Am Yisrael is a very, very large spiritual entity. And in another place, it's described that by receiving the different faces of the tzaddikim, you receive different aspects of the Shekhinah. Because their faces shine with the light of Hashem. So it's one of the benefits of living in Jerusalem. What can I say? Maybe if you go to other places, you also will have this opportunity. But it is an amazing thing to see the Rebbes in their Hasidim. Even if you're not interested in becoming a Belzer or a Toldos Aaron or any of the other groups, there's still something special in every group, and every Rebbe is the root of the light of every group. And really, if we're really Ezu hacham ro'eh mikol adam, who is the wise person who receives from every man? And certainly we can receive from every righteous person. And I've met people that say, no, I don't learn his books. I don't learn his shita. It's not ours. That's sad. For me, that's sad. Because they're still operating like we operated in junior high. No, they're not in our school. They don't have our football team. Come on. Let's open up our brain and receive everybody. And then you get another aspect of Hashem. So I want to bless everybody with a holy Yom Tov and a holy Shabbos. And that Shabbos is a preparation for Yom Tov is an interesting thing. Halachically, we're not supposed to prepare from one day, holy day to another. Physical preparation. But here we're preparing to receive the Torah again as it was first given, as it's still being given. Because the giving of the Torah is happening every day. Every day, those commandments are shining out of the Shekhinah into the soul of man. And every day, another mitzvah is calling to you. And that is the call from Sinai. Whether the call says, give that person a little tzedakah. Or, did you remember to put on tefillin? Or, I really want to go pray with those Jews. Anytime you get a call to do a mitzvah, that's the Shekhinah calling. Now, it comes through the filter of your mind. And you think it's Avraham telling Avraham what to do. But that's a little simple, actually. Because if I wasn't told what to do by a higher place, who knows, where I'd be. But something told me to get in my van and cross America and end up in the religious community in LA, and suddenly my eyes were opened. So, if you want to receive the Torah, understand it's coming through your filters, asking you to take another step, Naseh v'nishma, wherever it might be. It might be helping the non-Jewish neighbor. It might be doing the dishes and surprising your wife. It's always a good idea. Or, going out and buying her something special without her knowing. Because Shavuot, the receiving of the Torah, as we said, is the receiving of the will of Ima Ila'ah, of the upper mother. And we are all the children of this upper mother. So, it's been a busy week. It's been a good week. We noticed that before the festival, there's always this extra chaos. There's this extra realigning of things in our lives. Because really, Hashem is trying to shake us up a little bit or get us out of our routineness in order to receive the special light of Yom Tov, this 50th gate of understanding. Now, in Breslov literature, we are taught that the 50th gate of understanding is God's prayer. And we've talked about that before, that the highest prayer is God's prayer for you and for Am Yisrael and for the entire world. So we should merit to God's prayer on the 50th day. And we will be back next week with more. And always, as members of Patreon, we're looking to hear what you have to say and interested. And it should be a wonderful weekend, a weekend of holiness, meditation, prayer, and really rising above this template we call time. And we look forward to seeing you next week also. God bless. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach.